Here we go, episode 70 uploaded and coming at you here on this Tuesday. We are now, 2 or 3 days removed from the Kentucky Derby, right? We're on the other side of the Derby, and everything changes after the Derby. Like leading up to it, you know exactly what you're looking for, you know exactly what you're looking at, you know exactly what you're trying to accomplish, right? It's 3-year-olds who have never done something before, mile and a quarter, 18, 19 other horses, sloppy track, whatever it may be. It's kind of easy to assess that. Not easy to pick the winner, but easy to assess what you're trying to do. After, now it starts getting a little hazy because we're not sure what horses are going to show up. We're not sure what's happening with our Derby winner. And so that's where we find ourselves today, still waiting for decisions. Sovereignty and journalism still undecided. And here's the thing about that. In my opinion, journalism can't go to the Preakness, in my opinion, without sovereignty. Does that make any sense? Like when you have two horses that we all felt like, hey, these two horses are the two top horses. They're going to meet up in the stretch, and they did. Now you're setting up, right, the rivalry, right, that we all love so much. And if you can do that, you feel like you can capture the nation's attention and the bettors as well as you continue through the Triple Crown. So one can't go without the other. Now, sovereignty can go without journalism because he's the Derby winner. But journalism can't show up without sovereignty, in my opinion. It doesn't quite mean the same thing. Sure, the money means the same thing if they win, right? The trophy still looks the same, but it just doesn't quite carry the same way. On the other hand, we do have one confirmed Derby runner that is going to move on to the Preakness. The coach, D. Wayne Lucas, is always ready to scrap. He's always up for the challenge. That's why we love this man. He's like, if the horse is okay, we're going to dance. So he's already said that American Promise will move on to the Preakness. And this is the horse that made that really weird mid-race move where he just rushed up in between horses. And then we're like, what are you doing? And then he just completely faded back. So hopefully he has an excuse for that, and he will have a much better performance coming up in the Preakness, no matter what the competition is. But now we find ourselves in this really weird spot where everyone in horse racing, the media, right, marketing and promotion of horse racing, turns to one thing. And their attention turns to the Triple Crown. And here's where things start to get murky for me, right? For 20 years, all I had to do, or all I was trying to do, was elevate the sport in terms of its attention, the presence, right? In terms of getting new fans involved in the sport. That was my only job at TVG FanDuel. And it's the hardest job I've ever had because it was really a Sisyphean task. Sisyphus was plagued with pushing the boulder all the way up the hill every day, only for the boulder to roll back on top of him every day, and he had to start all over again and push it up. The Sisyphean task, right? Seems like it's impossible to gain any headway or any progress. So the question is the Triple Crown, is it still worth all the trouble? Is it still a worthy pursuit for the horseman? Right? You heard Bill Mott and the Connections of Godolphin saying, hey, we're always going to think about the Triple Crown, but we're also going to think about what's best for the horse. And so I believe in the next 48 hours, the Connections of Sovereignty will commit to running in the Preakness because there's still nothing like that Triple Crown accomplishment if you can earn it, right? Because it does go a long way towards enhancing the stud fee later on. But what does it do while we're in the middle of it? So here's the thing. I started doing a lot of research. And I went back and just started reading, okay, when the Triple Crown is happening, or if we actually get a Triple Crown winner, because we're so used to getting to the Belmont, having someone eligible to win the Triple Crown only to have our hearts broken, right? So for the people that are out there in mainstream, they couldn't take that year after year after year after year, right? So they kind of wouldn't come back after you had a Smarty Jones, right? Or War Emblem, or a Big Brown, right? Or California Chrome. Now, Chrome is different because he captured the nation in a different way than any other horse has. But it was really hard to kind of retain all of that attention and keep those people coming back. And I started doing the research, and I went back to the year after American Pharoah won the Triple Crown, right? So that would be 2015 is when he was the winner. So then you want to compare that to what happens in 2016. According to an article on drf.com from Matt Harrigan, he pointed out that the Pharaoh effect largely debunked as Triple Crown business figures dip. So betting on the Derby was down, right, the very next year. And then, of course, betting on the Belmont is down as well. Now, the Belmont automatically is affected if you don't have a Triple Crown contender. The Belmont always takes a hit because it needs that momentum going into it. But you see how those numbers dropped after the situation with American Pharaoh. And it just goes to show that it's so hard to retain all of those customers who only show up really once a year, right? They get into the Derby, and then maybe they stay around for the Preakness, and maybe they stay around for the Belmont, and then they're out. And then every year we start all over again with marketing and promotion trying to get those people to stay. But even TV ratings were down the year after American Pharaoh. And that's interesting because the year after Pharaoh, if you all remember this, is Nyquist, who's the 2-year-old champion who's undefeated. And for some strange reason, we still couldn't garner excitement. Like, think about that. You just had a Triple Crown winner, the first one in whatever, 37 years. And then you come right back with an undefeated 2-year-old who wins the 2-year-old championship, comes into the Derby, is ready to go, and rocks. And you still can't get those new fans to stay. And I don't really know why. But I think about, like I said, my job, which, because of me coming from mainstream media and then coming into horse racing, then going back to mainstream media and then coming back to horse racing, I was able to look at things from both perspectives, right? Now, for mainstream media, you have to have a story around the horse, so the horse matters. California Chrome was a great story. That's why they set records for handle for the Belmont Stakes and all that stuff, because it's California Chrome. It's the ultimate rags to riches story. And so that really helped to captivate people. But the California Chrome situation also turned people off, right? So when I say this, decades of lawsuits, infighting, controversies, and a lack of transparency has hurt that Triple Crown pursuit. Here's what I mean. I'll tick off a couple of things that happened. 1997, Visa is the sponsor of the Triple Crown Challenge, saying it's a $5 million Triple Crown Challenge. But owner Robert Lewis, the late great Robert Lewis, had Silver Charm. Silver Charm was going into the Belmont trying to win the Triple Crown. Bob Lewis discovered that Visa wasn't giving a $5 million bonus. They said it was $5 million total with the purses from all 3 races, and then they would add on something. Robert Lewis is like, no, that's not how this works. It says bonus. You need to give us a bonus. So he got Visa to actually agree, okay, it would be a bonus in the $5 million challenge. But stuff like that, when I saw that, I was like, why are they trying to trick us? That's not cool. Thank goodness for Bob Lewis to get down to the nitty gritty and say, no, that's not how this works. So things like that, you start to see, well, that's not really transparent. That's not good. Okay, then you move on. Let's go to California Chrome, right? So let's go California Chrome. He's doing his thing. He's captivated the nation. He's an incredible horse. He gets to the Belmont, right? He gets stepped on coming out of the gate. You can see he's not quite himself. He ends up running 3rd. The problem with that is Steve Coburn's reaction, where he was all up in arms about the new shooters coming in and it's not fair. Sour grapes is probably not something we want in horse racing, all right? Then you've got controversies. When American Pharaoh wins, Zayat Stables is in all kinds of legal trouble. Not just the bankruptcy proceedings, but also gambling investigations. So now you've got an owner of a Triple Crown winner who's got all this gambling debt and all this questionable stuff happening. And so the thing about, I've found out with that situation, horse racing needed, in my opinion, still does, needs to stay in the corner. Because once you start to pull this rug back on horse racing and everybody starts to shine a light on this stuff, you start to see, what the heck are y'all doing? This is crazy, right? Then you don't even get to the situation with Maximum Security and the situation with Jason Service, right? The drug situation there. Then you get to the Bob Baffert situation with Medina Spirit. And that was really bad because no one could explain it. You could not explain this, and I tried explaining it to the general public. They're like, oh, he's a cheater. I'm like, okay, you can have an overage and not be a cheater, right? There's a difference between Jorge Navarro, Jason Service, and Bob Baffert and Todd Pletcher, in my opinion. But it was really hard to explain that to people. So now you've got, one of the most successful Derby trainers, and now you've taken the Derby away from him. And it just did not go, it didn't help. None of this stuff helps, right? So then you've got the general public, they're like, man, I don't have time for this. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. So there are all these little things that have kind of tripped up the Triple Crown. And so what kind of bothers me is that this time of year, the same people come out and say the same things. And they're expecting the Kentucky Derby, and the same people meaning the people who work in horse racing, right? Track announcers, the in-track handicappers, right? The people who are on TV. They act like if we have a Triple Crown pursuit, it's supposed to garner us a lot more attention and bring in new fans. But it never does. We have the hardest time retaining those fans. And I don't know why. I'm just trying to point out some of the evidence that I found, and I don't understand why it's still like this, right? So then we have the question that the horsemen have been asking, and even some fans. Should we give the horses more time in between races? It's a good question. I say no. I say that would completely dilute and water down the entire essence of this historical pursuit. It's the 5 weeks that you hold the nation's attention, because you can't hold their attention any longer than that, to be honest with you. 5 weeks. And so if you can accomplish it, it makes you a super horse, right? It's really, really interesting. So they shouldn't spread them out. They should leave them as is. And if a horse can go through all three, it's fantastic. But what we shouldn't do as an industry is that we shouldn't expect for the Triple Crown pursuit to enhance what we're doing. We should just keep our heads down and keep working. And don't try so hard to appeal to mainstream media. You've been trying to do it for decades and it doesn't work. So, a little insider baseball. Part of the reason why I said what I said that was so controversial in May of 2023 that led to me leaving FanDuel was that I was tired of playing this game. I'm tired of it. And if your job was like my job, where you have to go out there and sell this sport, I got tired of playing the game every year where everyone's like, well, I hope this is going to enhance the sport, bring more people to the track, it'd be so great. What would make you think that that would work? It's never worked. Why do you keep saying that? It never works. It's never going to happen. So my point was, hey, let's stop pretending. Let's be who we are. We're a crazy, crazy, crazy aggressive sport that you just can't understand, right? There's going to be some things that are going to happen that you're not going to like. There are going to be some things that are going to happen that's some straight up BS. But within all that, the basic elements of this sport and this game, the best of any on the planet. I don't care what anybody says. There is nothing better than this. You mean to tell me you're going to give me all this information, all the stats and the numbers on the horse, and now it's up to me to predict what that horse is going to do? It's the best endeavor ever. And then you get paid like that? And then the value is way better than anything else? Best gambling endeavor ever, even with the shady stuff that may be happening. Best endeavor ever. And then to admit that we know, as owners and trainers and jockeys, we have to go through all kinds of stuff to win this race. And we know that there might be an injury along the way. We know we might lose a horse along the way. But we're willing to make that sacrifice because we want to win. And that horse wants to win. Right? It's not about me being insensitive and not liking horses. That's the opposite. I got tired of pushing the boulder up the hill every year, only to have that boulder roll right back down on top of me, and I got to start all over again. Management's telling me we got to get this many accounts. Then we get done, and they don't say we got that many accounts, right? They're moving the goalposts for us every single month and every single year, which makes it an impossible sport to market and promote. Impossible. So when people start talking about marketing and promoting the sport, and I'm like, it's never going to work, right? It doesn't even work. So the question is, does anyone in mainstream media even care? Like, are they going to come out and cover this? Like, the only reason why I was able to cover California Chrome's Triple Crown Pursuit when I was in mainstream media as the news anchor in Sacramento is because the owner was 20 miles away from us. If the owner didn't live that close to us, there's no way they would have let me go. Because it just doesn't entice the general public. Mainstream media just does not get it. And I don't think that they will. And I don't think they want to. But at the same time, what you're going to see is every year we do this, right? They go out and you're going to see numbers. Handle is this. TV ratings was this. But yet we don't seem to be able to retain those customers. TV audience this year for the Kentucky Derby, the highest since 1989. And look, if you're part of that crew for NBC Sports, I know you are working your absolute butt off. No doubt. But everybody knows this. The coverage that NBC does for the Derby is the longest. It is the most tedious. It is the most boring coverage of any sporting event in the history of television. It's the same kind of stories they try to pump out there every single year. It's the same stuff. And I'm just like, oh, this year, I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch 1 second of it. Not 1 second. Why would I? Same stories every year. So if you're going to do the same thing every year, right? Isn't that the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So I feel like it would be valuable for horse racing. Just do its own thing and not worry about what anybody thinks. We know you love horses. We know you care about the horse. We know that. But don't try to convince PETA and all the other people that you're doing it. Just take care of your business. Right? Try to find a way to come together. They need to find a way to bring the NTRA back. Because when you don't have a governing body, it's really, really hard to market and promote your sport. So that's why it would always frustrate me that we as the players didn't help to market the sport together. We argue with each other so much, it's crazy. We don't even argue about bets. You can easily argue with me about whether you like that horse or not. I'm cool with that. But we argue about everything. We bicker about everything in this sport. And then the same thing happens every single year. It just goes in a cycle, and it's absolute insanity. But if the audience is going up as far as the viewership is concerned, then maybe there's a way to grow the sport in an organic way that is true and really underscores the integrity of the sport. So every time we get to this kind of year, I'm just like, how are we going to do this year? How are we going to do it? Well, it's always an interesting pursuit. I'd love to hear what you all think because everyone has a different opinion on this. And I think the Triple Crown is great, but I just don't expect it to fix or help anything in horse racing. And that's kind of the thing that I was tricked into believing. I was tricked into believing, like, hey, if we get a Triple Crown horse, it's going to change what's happening with us and people are going to start watching it. It never does. It never does. But we're all going to be here, right? We like it a lot. So let's see if we can continue to grow the sport together. It's pretty tricky. It's pretty tricky. But in the meantime, in between time until next time, we'll just hang out here every single day and talk about this. And hopefully we'll be able to maybe cash tickets together because that's what it's all about, right? You just want to cash your bets. Look at a pretty horse run. That's all we want. All right. I got that off my chest. That was my rant. That's the thing that drives me crazy every single year because I just felt powerless. Like there's no way I can market and promote this sport with all these things going against it. But somebody's got to. Somebody's got to. We'll be back here again tomorrow. And hopefully we'll have a decision on our runners if they're going to move on to the Preakness or not. In the meantime, good luck and enjoy whatever you're into.